And welcome back. Our second conversation, as we mentioned, is with the Ministry of Youth Services. We have with us, joining us via Zoom, the Director of the Department of Youth Services, Kevin Cadle. Good morning. We also have with us the Chief Executive Officer in the Ministry of Youth, Sports and E-Governance, Jose Urbina. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning again.
Good morning.
Okay, so we begin our conversation, first of all, by discussing the recent survey that was conducted. What were the questions being asked? And of course, what was the chief response from those who took the survey? Perhaps you could...
Good morning, Marlene and Isani. It's a great pleasure to be here at Open Your Eyes. My first, to be sincere. And it's great to be here to inform the Belizean public about what we're doing as a Department of Youth Services.
Yeah.
But before jumping into the needs assessment survey, under the Ministry of Youth, Sports and E-Governance, we have re-strategized our focus. We have a renewed vision in terms of how we want to service our youth population and how we want to combine the different departments under our ministry, how we use sports and how we use technology to enhance our services for the youth in Belize. As you well said, we have undertaken a youth needs assessment, and it's precisely to identify the gaps and how we move forward in terms of the renewed strategy under the Department of Youth Services. We cannot move forward, Isani and Marlene, if we do not know what we need to address. And that is the primary focus of the youth needs assessment. It is the first in a very long time, to be sincere, and we are looking forward to the results. However, we have received some preliminary results from the survey that has been done in Belize City, and it has highlighted some interesting and dire needs that the youth have within our country. I will allow our director to present those results.
Good morning again, Sani and Marlene. Currently, one of the most pressing issues coming out of the data, primarily in Belize City, both north and south side Belize City, is that young people are asking for counseling services. They're also asking for confidentiality with those counseling services. And they're saying that there is a dire need to have counseling or counselors around, people that they can speak to be able to share some of their situations, concerns. We're taking it that one of the most severe situations going on in our, especially south side area, has to do with all the murders that have been happening, and the fact that there is PTSD, which is post-traumatic syndrome disorder. And with that trauma, we're recognizing that young people may have been experiencing a lot of anger and anger issues as a result of it. I don't know if you're aware of Kubler-Ross, that speaks, or Jowett et al., who speaks about grief and loss and the significance of working with people to be able to go through those particular areas and be able to work themselves and catharsis and be able to gain some semblance in their lives. It doesn't matter how much jobs we give young people, how much education we give young people. What is significant here is that young people need to be able to let go of those pressing situations that they're currently experiencing.
It's really interesting that mental health services has come out as number one. And I think it's very telling for us as a society, and hopefully for parents at home who are watching, recognizing that their teens and their young adults are saying that they need counseling services. Now, this isn't something that, having identified at least this one need, how do you respond to it? Mental health services does come at a cost. In fact, if you are going to seek professional services especially, it will require some level of resources. So let's talk about how you address the need now that you have identified it.
Well, we had gone, before that, we had already, and I will let the CEO speak about it in a few, but we had already gone as far as creating 5 key thematic areas utilizing the youth needs policy, which is the policy that was revised in 2016, as well as looking at the Sustainable Development Goals 2030, which speaks about young people and about wellness. And we created the Youth Counseling and Wellness Services, within our department as one of those areas that we believe that young people actually need it. And so with that in mind, what we want to do is expand on those services. We're currently doing our national strategic plan, and the national strategic plan will be speaking about some of those particularly important areas where we need to harness the support of counselors and key people who could be able to provide the necessary psychosocial aspect of our work for the betterment of our youth.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the other needs that have been identified, and just clarify for me 1 second who responded to the survey. Would you say that these were a wide cross-section of youths, like it included young people who didn't finish school, young people who are unemployed, and those who are employed or perhaps still in school? Did it have a wide enough cross-section?
It had a wide cross-section, yes. It is 1%, which creates reliability and validity. It's random. It was randomly done. It is still randomly being done to be able to get a cross-section view of young people throughout the country. And so on the north and south side, it was randomly done, and it's done by young people. We're utilizing a system created by the Statistical Institute of Belize. They're very much in the process and assisting us, along with 2 key consultants who are being able to look at the data, create a dashboard, and on a daily basis, we look at the trends and recognize where we are with the current survey.
To add also, guys, it's important to highlight that the survey is being done in all areas, both urban and rural areas of Belize. And it's precisely for that, Marlene, to ensure that we engage a wide range of young people across the length and breadth of our country.
So the first need was mental health. Let's talk about some of the other needs that have been identified.
Other one would be job. Go ahead. Sorry about that, CEO. Go ahead.
Yeah, so there are some other needs as you rightly highlighted, and as the director has also pointed out, skills training is another need. We do realize that most or some of our youth do not see or cannot afford or have the opportunity for formal education. So there is the need for training in terms of what we consider informal in vocations and creating a trade for these young people. You also have other needs in terms of access to land and housing, and also employment opportunities are some of the few that have been highlighted.
Mm-hmm. How does the ministry seek to address the issue of employment? Because that's one of the perennial things where you have young people coming out of school or young people wanting work, but perhaps there isn't sufficient in either public or private sector.
Right. So one of the things we are focusing as a government, because it is something that has arisen from the office of the Prime Minister, and even before that, internally within our ministry and Department of Youth Services, along with the director, we had initiated discussions with some call centers within our country to see or to seek the opportunity to hire some of the youth within Belize. And that is precisely what we're doing. We are engaging private sector to see how we can best work with them and collaborate with them to create employment opportunities. And some of it has been fruitful because we have managed the hiring of at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, Director, at least 50 young individuals. And when I say young, I also include single moms as part of this group, to be hired in call centers. And we are also looking at growing that number. I think there is the request for about 200 additional persons to be hired under this idea.
Yeah. CEO, talk to us about your vision for this particular ministry. You have quite a bit on your plate. One, let's start off with just the sheer size of the youth population in this country. So, you're talking about almost half of the population where your services are needed. It ties in a sports sector that, I think while we all love sports, there's kind of a general acknowledgement that there's never sufficient resources to invest in it and to be able to get the quality level athletes that we would like to have. But then you also have e-governance, which is a huge undertaking on its own that's extremely critical to the overall governance of the country. So talk to me about how you've been kind of dividing the ministry itself and yourself and the minister, how you've been dividing this role.
Well, Marlene, I'm a technology person. I've been exposed. My core field is actually in technology. I've been working in the past at management levels for BTL and Smart, and have been assisting cable operators in a consultancy, from a consultancy standpoint. However, I do have sports and youth as a passion. I think that as a ministry, we need to change the idea when budgeting comes along to say we need to budget and we have an expense of X amount of dollars for youth or sports, youth, and e-governance. When we look at the reality is that this is an investment, as you rightfully pointed out. We need to invest in our youth. We need to invest in sports, and now more important than ever, we need to invest in technology as it relates to e-governance. My vision, Marlene, aligns with what we have been doing as a team, and I must highlight that it doesn't matter if it's my vision. The importance is that it's a collaboration or team effort that is required. I must highlight that the Department of Youth Service has some very passionate employees, starting with the director. And one of the things that we began from the onset is actually the amalgamation of services. We did realize that most of the services for youth was being offered in Belize City. And we then wanted to expand all youth services across our country. And that is the reason why we submitted a cabinet paper, and it was approved so that we were able to grow and provide youth services across the length and breadth of our country. As you rightfully mentioned, there are many needs that our youth have, and there's only one way we can tackle all of those problems, and it's by us realizing what the problem is and how we will deal with it. Yeah. As you rightfully mentioned also, when we look at sport and e-governance, while they are a large part of what is needed within Belize, we see to maximize the strengths within our group. We have our director, Kevin Kittle, who deals with DYS. We have our director, Ian Carl, who deals with the sports sides, and our director, or incoming director, I must say, Alexa Peralta, who deals with the e-governance aspect. While I try to concentrate on all three, most of my efforts at this point is working closely with the governance aspect, because it's a new ministry and we are still establishing the fundamentals for that ministry. So that is important as we move along.
But when you talk about technology, there's such an advantage here. You know, you have young children who know how to swipe or manipulate their way through a cell phone before they're even able to talk. And so they're growing up with a different skill set. Has there been any thought in moving forward with doing coding camps, or getting the young people who are seeking employment to learn app development or these technology skills that are very marketable, not just in country, but beyond our borders?
Yes, we are. In fact, before jumping in as the CEO for the ministry, we had formed a coding club in Orange Walk, a Coders Dojo Club.
Oh, wow.
And we used Bishop Martin High School as one of the centers. And precisely for that, we know that our young people like computers. They are very tech savvy, and they are willing to learn in terms of what technology has to bring, especially coding. Through the Department of Youth Services also, we have established a department that deals precisely with technology, and we're trying to maximize that department and collaborate with other stakeholders on the government to see how best we can we can use their resources also. One of those partners is Beltrade. We're also seeking funds from IFIs and also from the ICDF, which is a supporter for Belize in establishing digital labs. We're actually about to get approval to begin a pilot project whereby we can establish some of these digital labs, and precisely because we identify the need in terms of connectivity and our older population, and how delayed they are, if I can refer to it in that way, in terms of how to use technology. When we look at e-governance, Marlene and Isani, is we need connectivity, and we also need people that are able to use the technology to access government services. So these digital labs will assist us to enhance skills not only from on the youth population, but also on the older population within our country.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oftentimes, when we hear e-governance, it sounds like something distant or foreign to us in terms of the actual implementation. I guess it's because quite some time we've been hearing about this, but we haven't really seen it come to fruition. What can we expect in terms of the implementation of full e-governance systems in this country?
Well, we are looking at areas where we can make high impact and a tangible change. Our Prime Minister is championing the digitalization of the vital statistics unit. That is one of the first units that we jumped in, and as a Ministry of E-Governance, in collaboration with the Ministry of the Attorney General, in documenting what is, because that is the fundamental step that we need. We need to document what is currently there, what is the digital maturity, and how we move forward as a government, and how much monies will need to be invested in e-governance. So that is one of the things that we're looking at. When we look at the application and printing of police records, that's another aspect we're looking at. When we talk about open governance, it is important to highlight that open governance or good governance, I simply refer to the word governance. It already directly states, or speaking about good governance, it is part of e-governance also. When we look at the ease of doing business within our country, which again, the Office of the Prime Minister is championing, we need to look at BELIPO, we need to look at the Company and Corporate Affairs Registry, which we are already looking at and partnering and collaborating with them in how to better digitalize their services. So it's a wide range of information. And even to be honest, when we look at e-governance and online services, to have true online services or true end-to-end digitalized services, we need to look at online payments. And that is another aspect that we are discussing. And today we actually have a meeting with the Ministry of Finance to discuss some of those functions in terms of how do we proceed with online payments. We are engaging private stakeholders, the banking partners, to see how we can carry out some of the fundamentals aspect of e-governance. We also speak about a national ID. We're also working along with IFIs, the IDB in particular. They are funding technical consultancies to assist us in doing and implementing e-governance. But Isani, you highlighted something very important, the implementation. And I translate that as the execution of these projects, because in the past that has been a weakness, and we are focusing on planning and executing. That is key. And that is something that I've highlighted to our incoming director, that as much planning as we can do is good, but the best thing for me is to execute and to have tangible change that our people can feel and can experience as it pertains to government services.
Yes. Now, I know we hijacked the conversation to talk about e-governance, but it's such a critical point, and we hope we can explore it further. Let's just wrap up by having the Director Cadle talk about the finalization of the survey itself. Maybe there are young people out there who want their voices to be heard and haven't been targeted for responses yet. How do they give their feedback to the Youth Department?
Well, we have the U report that we're currently working with, and the U report is speaking loudly in terms of various mechanisms that young people could put their input in terms of questions being asked, and that is in collaboration with UNICEF. We're currently registering young people as we go along through the U report, and we're hoping that young people, those who are even registered, could start utilizing the tool and the platform to be able to let their voices be heard. Moreover, we will be targeting both urban and rural young people in the future. As we continue to roll out the youth needs assessment, we have various areas that we definitely will be going to be able to provide the assessment, and therefore, even if young people see our collectors on the street who are young people, because it is for young people by young people, we're trying to get this information. And like the CEO had rightfully said, this is the first time that this is actually being done. At least in my 24 years of service, this is the first time I'm actually seeing this on the ground and something literally tangible to provide the type of needs that young people actually acquire. Yeah. We have always been planning for young people, but have not been able to get the direct information from young people nationally as it relates to their needs.
What age are we looking at?
Say it again.
I'm sorry, the target age group.
The age group is from 14 to 29 years old. Okay. That we're targeting currently for this particular needs assessment.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think, you know, being able to make policy changes or policy decisions based on evidence is always a great move. Once you know and you can assess what the young people want and where the needs are, then you can be better steered in a direction where whatever investment you make or resources you use will be where it's most needed. Let's start to wrap up the conversation so we can find out more about what is currently ongoing at DYS so people can take advantage of it. I know you made your move over to Gateway, so that's one thing that people have to know.
Yeah, well, it's no longer Gateway, it's the Department of Youth Services proper. Okay. Well, one of the things that we had to do was to amalgamate what was Gateway before, along with skills training services and the cadet corps. And we brought those together along with the 4-H and created what is known as Central and Western Regional Youth Training Institutes. One of the things that have happened in our country in the past decade that we recognize is that there was a need for the Center for Employment Training, and that the IT vets were not doing what they were catered to do. And therefore, we needed to put a step back to what the IT vets were doing and to create what we now call the Center for Employment Training modules that will actually be utilizing in the training institutes, along with agriculture. Agriculture is another big area that we're actually going to utilize to try and hallmark, especially young people in the rural areas. We are partnering currently with SICA, and we're also partnering with UNHCR to bring about the cure violence model within our district, our cities, by creating what is going to be called the community committees on violence with violence interrupters, getting ready to do training of trainers with people so that they could be able to better work with their people within their communities. Besides that, we have created some key result areas, which we have CEOs explaining, which is the youth arts and counseling, youth technology, arts services, the counseling and wellness services, the youth governance, policy, planning, research, and data services. This is a fairly new service. But what we want to be able to do is to be able to provide people with the data on where it relates to young people, as well as the science behind research and what is basically the current trend and what young people are actually thinking. So we have embarked on that as well. We're also embarking on the behavior modification and conflict management, which was the past CYDP. And the most effective way to working with gang members is not basically just looking at it from a legislative standpoint, but to look at it from a pure violence standpoint. And so we're getting ready to do a training with Mr. Nouri Mohammed, along with our partners from UNHCR, to be able to better provide services to the communities, especially on Southside Belize City, where violence is basically trending. In terms of our department, we are becoming more technological and scientifically savvy in terms of our way forward. We're currently working on our strategic plan, which is based on models from both the SDGs and the revised youth policy, and trying to hallmark whatever we can in terms of bringing scientific an approach to young people. Once the department was more an implementer, but now we're looking at becoming not just an implementer, but looking at a holistic approach where we could be the leader in providing services to young people throughout the country of Belize.
All right. Well, we look forward to hearing more of the work that is ongoing at the DYS, and CEO definitely looking forward to following up on that conversation with e-governance. Thank you both for joining us and giving us some insight. The assessment, the National Youth Assessment, is ongoing, and of course we hope that people make use of the opportunity to have their voices be heard and be incorporated into the final policies that will come out from the Ministry of Youth. Thank you very much. We'll take that break, and when we come back, we'll be talking to two young actors in Belize about their experience in making a horror movie. So please stay tuned.